There are a number of historical places in LA that hold childhood memories for me, and the iconic Santa Monica Pier is definitely one of them. On this episode of Backlot LA, we had a great day visiting this landmark location and talking to Jim Harris, Deputy Director at the Santa Monica Pier. Jim was not only a knowledgeable historian, but a notable author and a world-class tour guide. Join us as we stroll down memory lane and explore the last great pleasure pier. No, you're not watching one of LA's infamous police car chases, but actually a scene from Ruthless People, one of the countless movies and TV shows that have used the pier as a production backdrop. Before we dive into the productions that have filmed here, let's learn more about the pier's origins and rich history.
So I know the history sort of a little bit, that's why I'm here. The pier opened up in 1909, correct?
It opened to the public on September 9th, 1909, which if you write that numerically, it's 9909.
Oh.
It didn't open as the amusement park, of course, that we know as today. It opened actually as a public utility. It was built to run sewage out into the ocean, which was distinguished when it first opened, not so much for the use as a public utility, but because it was the first ever entirely concrete pier built on the west coast of the United States. Unfortunately, they used beach sand for those concrete piles, and the salt water seeped in. It's very porous, so the salt water seeped in and rusted out the ironwork inside, and they had to, 10 years after they put the pier up in 1919, they had to replace all those concrete piles with wooden piles. Today we are back to concrete piles made properly and with a wooden deck on top to keep that great pier feeling. You know, walking on the wooden deck boards is really something special.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I trip every time I walk on a wooden boardwalk, but I love it because it gives it such a kind of a historical, more organic feel to it.
You know you're on a pier.
Yes, exactly. No mistake about it.
Sure, this building is known to most people as the merry-go-round building, like it says on the side, or the carousel building. A lot of people call it that. Its real name is the Looff Hippodrome, named after Charles Looff, the man who built the building and then the part of the pier that it stands on. And it opened on June 12th, 1916. We'll be celebrating its 100th birthday on June 12th this year with rollback pricing and a lot of other fun things happening inside.
Okay, Jim, so we're standing inside the Hippodrome. We've got a phenomenal carousel behind us. Tell us a little bit about the carousel.
Sure, it's actually the third carousel that's been in the building. It's been here since 1947, though, so a lot of people who say they've been riding the same carousel here, they're probably right. There may be a few that come in and rode a different carousel, but the original carousel, of course, was a Looff carousel. The person who took over the leasehold eventually in the 1940s brought this carousel from the Venice Pier because it was a nicer carousel. All of the horses on it are the original 1922 hand-carved horses.
Wow.
Yes, they are antiques. It is impressive, and they're in great condition. They're very well cared for.
We also talked about some of the movies that use the carousel in their productions.
I guess the most famous, of course, would be The Sting. Yeah. Yes, and it's used for a few different scenes.
In fact, in this establishing scene, you can see the Looff Hippodrome, or the merry-go-round room, in the foreground, while the background was drawn in to depict the Chicago skyline.
But Paul Newman's character did live in one of the apartments above the merry-go-round, and he operated the merry-go-round in The Sting. So.
Wow. And was this the actual carousel that was?
This was the actual carousel.
Will you get a mob together? After what happened to Luther, I don't think I can get more than 200-300 guys. Luther said you learn fast. I hope he's right.
All right, Jim, tell us where we're at right now.
So we're in the hallway above the merry-go-round. Everybody knows the building is the merry-go-round building or the carousel building. It's actually called the Looff Hippodrome, named after Charles Looff, the man who built it. The significance of this part of the hallway is during the movie The Sting, Eileen Brennan walking down the hall and into a room where they hatch up the whole scheme of the movie. And she ran a brothel in these upstairs rooms in the movie. And I've actually had people come up and ask me if this used to be a brothel up here.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim, tell us where we're at.
Sure. We're at the top of the stairway that leads from the apartments down into the merry-go-round section. And I call these the Dennis Hopper stairs. Nobody else does. It's not an official name, but I'm trying to get there. Someday maybe I'll put up a plaque. The reason I call them the Dennis Hopper Stairs, his first starring role was in a movie called Night Tide. It's a 1960 black and white late film noir. The footage that they have of the merry-go-round back in the day and of POP back in the day and the Venice canals, amazing. In the movie, he must go up and down these stairs about 10 times. And so every time I walk down here, I can just picture Dennis Hopper walking right back.
I think a plaque is absolutely appropriate up here.
Sure. Well, if you're watching the movie Forrest Gump, we're at the west end of the pier, which is as far as you can go on the Santa Monica Pier. But actually, we're not. You know, if you look beyond us, there is an actual west end.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of filming, this was an ideal spot for them to have Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump run out to the end and look out. Sure. Well, you can see when you look at it, you can see that there's a definite difference in the pier, particularly in the light poles. You see those white Cobra head light poles, and then you see the more decorative, shorter blue ones. And in 1983, 2 storms hit the pier and wiped out the entire west end.
Wow.
So everything that you see beyond those white Cobra heads is new. That's been built since 1989, actually, when they really started working on the reconstruction there. This is actually the spot where the pier had been torn down by storms in 1983. This is where it was torn down too, was this last white light pole. And in the mid-1980s, there was the film Ruthless People, of course, where they drive a car off of the end of the pier and then everybody jumps in the water afterwards and gets the money and everything. And so that was actually done at this spot. This was as far west as you could go on the pier, and the car went off of the end here.
You know what, buddy? You work, you put in the long hours, it's a tough beat. But it all seems worth it when you get a moment like this.
Yeah, I love a happy ending.
Yeah, one of the most fun moments in the research for the book that I did was I kept coming across this character named Olaf Olsen, who was a Norwegian-born man. He moved to the United States. He was forced to change his name to Olsen because the clerk couldn't spell Krogh, which is his real last name. Retired from the Navy, moved to Santa Monica, came out to the pier every day and saw all the activity going on here, and kind of unretired and put himself right back on the water, running fishing boat operations. Cartoonist of the Thimble Theater had an office here in Santa Monica, and he would come down to the pier every day with his assistant, and they'd rent a skiff and they'd go out into the bay and work on the Thimble Theater. Now, the Thimble Theater was about the oil family, who is olive oil and castor oil. All right, and this is all pre-Popeye. Well, one day they decide they need a boat captain to take them on a trip out to sea. They had a bunch of fishermen stereotypes to choose from, and they chose Olaf Olsen because he had this very distinct look, and he had the corncob pipe and the squinty eyes and the special little hat, and actually he was Popeye.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
In addition to the origins of the Popeye story, there is also continued debate of where Route 66 officially ends in California. Over the years, the Santa Monica Pier became the symbolic representative for the end of Route 66.
Sure, this sign was put up in 1941 to call attention to the fact that this is the way to get onto the pier. It was a newly built bridge at the time, and people were having a little bit of a difficult time finding out how to get to the pier, so this made it very clear this is the entrance to the Santa Monica Pier. Now, it doesn't say Santa Monica Pier, of course. It says Santa Monica Yacht Harbor, and advertises sport fishing and boating and cafes. And that's what the pier really was back then. It wasn't an amusement park pier. It was really centered around the water life. And there was the active yacht harbor just north of the pier and access to it from the west end of the pier. But it was a great part of the culture here at the pier and the water culture that the pier was surrounded with at the time that this sign was put up.
I also talked to Jim about how the Santa Monica Pier played a significant role in the U.S. war efforts during World War II.
The U.S. Navy at the outbreak of World War II, they took over San Pedro, port of Los Angeles, and they took over Oxnard, and they wouldn't allow the fishing boats in. So all the fishing boats, to bring their catch, they had to come to the Ocean Park Pier, the Santa Monica Pier. And there was a lot of activity, trucks coming out, picking up their loads and everything, and it caused so much damage to the pier that in 1942 they actually had to close the pier to vehicular traffic. And so all these fishing boats are coming in with their catch, no trucks to unload them onto. And
Big uproar, right?
There was a big uproar. They got really frustrated because they weren't going to take the fish anywhere else. There was nowhere else to take them, so they just unloaded their catch in the bay.
In the years after World War II, the pier still attracted fun seekers, but the pier's long-term future fell into doubt. In the 1970s, the City Council voted to demolish both parts of the pier due to its declining state. Residents rallied to save the pier, and in this process began the movement towards historic preservation.
About 10 years later, in 1983, Mother Nature came in and basically did what the city had intended to do, and they wiped out the entire west end of the pier. But really that was a blessing in disguise, because what it did was it gave the city a clean slate to work with, if you will, and to reimagine what the pier would be and to build it ground up and hopefully make it more viable. As a result, they formed our company, the Santa Monica Pier Restoration Corporation, it was founded as, to oversee the restoration of the pier and to help build it into something more family friendly. As a result, Pacific Park came out of that, the fine dining that we have on the pier now. Reimagined it as a different and better pier, and successfully.
The pier truly is an extraordinary landmark. It is one of the oldest wooden piers in the United States and the last remaining amusement pier on the West Coast. This journey to the Santa Monica Pier was a great experience. There's so much this pier has contributed to the community and culture of Southern California that it's not surprising it has become an internationally recognized location. Jim graciously shared his in-depth exploration of the pier through this book he wrote, which is available for purchase. It includes a beautifully written foreword by Robert Redford with stories and vibrant pictures of the history of the pier.
Thanks for joining us on this really fun episode in Santa Monica. Join us again next time as we continue to explore LA's great destinations. Until then, stay curious and don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on your favorite episodes. See you soon.